What happens when you run a reckless, sellout, rage-click piece of rag, so-called news organization? Well, most likely you'll do well. Google most likely will promote you. People will talk about you, but eventually people will get sick of you just crying wolf, saying the most insane things to get people's attention long enough that people will just start to not really care about you. And that's exactly what people are saying is happening right now to Salon Media, that allegedly is in talks to sell their once booming media empire for $5 million in a fire sale in what is being described as a last-ditch effort to save the company. Now, $5 million is what people are talking about, but the transaction right now is going to be $500,000, $500,000, and possibly two other transactions. This is because there's no guarantee that this business will survive. We also have to understand that the Salon CEO also, of course, quit the media empire. This is happening to, of course, other rage, click, reckless, sellout, establishment, divisive news, I say that in quotes, organizations like Vice, that even Disney admitted that when they put in $400 million into that news organization, that they totally lost that investment and it's worthless. We also found out that Vice Media recently got $250 million in debt funding from George Soros. And what's happening here with Salon, I believe, Jason, is correct with what I talked about in the beginning of this video. They were absolutely reckless. They were, of course, very biased on one political spectrum. They had a whole segment on their website dedicated to white men. Like you go to salon.com/topics/white men to talk about the insanity of just the race politics, identity politics that they try to push on everyone. But more importantly, they not only did that, they just kept upping the bar of insanity to the point where they tried to justify pedophilia. They wrote an article, quote, "I'm a pedophile, but I'm not a monster." They also tried to redefine the term from pedophile to, quote, "minor attracted person." This is absolutely sick. There's a sick organization. And in my opinion, they used every aspect of psychological manipulation, of just virtual car accidents to get everyone's attention. And to me, the media landscape is changing. But overall, I believe, Jason, that this is not going to be sustainable for any news organization to just scream like insane, crazy, crackhead lunatics in the streets of New York. What do you think, Jason? What's your assessment on this?
Well, I think that you calling them a news organization, yeah, it's really generous, man. Salon
Yeah,
is,
quote to news organization.
yeah, I'll say this. They've been around a lot longer than some of these other ones we're going to end up talking about, like Mike. And, Vice started as a magazine, but Salon has pretty much been around almost as long, if not as long as the Huffington Post. But like you said, how long can these operations sustain? And I always wondered, Luke, how the hell does something like Mike or Upworthy or any of these sites just all of a sudden pop up and have all this production value, and you find out people are dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into these things. And when you look at Mike, for instance, Mike has really laid off the majority of their journalistic writing staff after they were valued at something like $50 million. They sold for $5 million, and now what are they doing? They're trying to have cheap video production and, cut their staff by almost all of it to just try to maintain, bro. So you wonder, are they, like a company like Disney, do they get to write off the fact they're not going to make any profit from Vice? Is that what the scam is? That they just invest in propaganda, and when it fails, it's just like, oh, well, big tax write-off. Looks like we propagated as much as we could through this organization. Let's prop up another crap shed.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. It was a losing investment. Many people saw economically like, hey, this is not a good investment for you, Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos knows that and understands that because the media market is changing. Advertising is changing. The amount of attention that people have is changing. No longer do people have to sit through just what is it, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, sometimes even 4 minutes of advertisements that's blared on them on content that's curated and told when you can watch and not. No, we don't live in those days anymore. We live in a day where people have ad blocker and literally just circumnavigate all of that. And most media is based on donations. We're even seeing The Guardian. We're seeing so many other major news organizations, quote, news organizations, ask for donations because that's the only real way to survive. That's how we survive. We survive because of donations. But people like Bezos, who have the Washington Post, people like George Soros that are helping Vice Media, they know what they're doing. They're buying a lot of this insanity because it plays into, of course, so many different of their bigger objectives out there. Too many to name. We could speculate on a whole bunch of them, but pretty much media serves the interests that supplicates them, and that's pretty clear there. And if you look at Salon, they pretty much, in my opinion, helped produce the psychological disorder of a lot of people with just utter nonsense. I mean, my God, you read some of those articles. How can you justify, like this is how they get their attention, because now we're talking about them. How can you justify changing the term pedophile to, quote, minor attracted person? How ridiculous are you? This come on. Come on. They literally try to soften the blow and make the argument that, oh yeah, they try to normalize it, which is absolutely insane. And it just shows you, because there's a train of thought. There's two trains of thoughts here. One, that there are crazy people who actually do believe some of this stuff, and they're just writing it. I don't believe that. And there's a second train of thought of people like, man, we need more clicks. What's going to get people's attention? What are people going to link on? And it's this rage bait, divisive, race, identity, cultural nonsense that, of course, creates a dividing line. And this insanity is being spread for the benefit and profit, just like we saw with Mike.com, where admittedly, that's exactly what they were doing, for profit. So I do believe there's a profit motive and an insanity motive by the bigger interests who control this, who want society as divided and conquered, in my opinion. That's kind of my overall general consensus. What do you make of that, Jason?
One of the other points that I'd like to make is that sometimes it just shifts. So, for instance, the properties formerly known as Gawker plus The Onion have now sold for well below $50 million, when Gawker alone in 2016 was sold for $135 million. And you know what, Luke? That's after their legal troubles with the case with Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel funded a case with Hulk Hogan for Gawker Media publishing his sex tape and lost. And a lot of people thought that was the end, but then it got sold. You look at something like The Onion, it was insanely popular 10 years ago. Insanely popular. Now there's a bunch of competition. There's the hardtimes.net. I'm trying to think. There's a ton of them now. You know what I'm saying? So listen, competition is going to eventually be that Darwinian animal that takes out the dinosaurs. And I know a lot of people don't want to talk about social Darwinism, but listen, when you produce crap in and crap out, it's not great content like it used to be, and other competitors come in and they're producing better content. Guess what? That's going to end your business, unless, hey, you have George Soros seed funding. I guess you get to go on forever.
Yeah. When you're radicalizing people, you shouldn't be making money hand over fist. These companies were overvalued. There was so much push for them. There was like, oh my God, look. And now people are getting the reality like, hey, you guys are scum. That's my opinion, of course. That's what I believe. I'm curious what you guys think. There's another argument to make here about the failing kind of overall news business, which is happening. Hedge funds coming in and pretty much buying out a lot of the media, getting rid of the investigative units, doing more of the, of course, monetary incentive, click rage, opinion-based pieces, rather than actual investigative journalism. That's a whole nother argument to be made here, and to also think about in this larger perspective, in this bigger changing media aspect, where it's turning out to be true that you're going to have to be really good, really accurate, do a lot of good work, do a lot of investigative work that people actually support, because people are going to have to support you if you want to survive. That's why we keep mentioning, hey, if we want to survive as an independent media organization, if you guys want us to exist you guys are going to have to donate $5 a month on our website. We have a little membership area. That means a lot to us, but it's becoming more and more necessary, mainly because we're getting demonetized, mainly because we're getting deranked, mainly because even when we do cover news stories, it never shows up in the algorithm, because just like yesterday, we showed you how Google has a bias, and that bias is towards CNN, which is sometimes just as bad as Salon. Their ratings are going down. It doesn't matter. Google still sees them as the top #1 voice that you should see when you look at news. And then us, downranked, kicked in the bottom. But we're still here. We're still surviving somehow, mainly because of your support. And that's where all the media is going to go. The whole advertising, people have an ad blocker. People need to understand this is a changing media game. If you're not getting donations, if people are incentivizing this with clicks, shares, and money, with just a small time donation, if people aren't doing that, then the media is going to be totally different. So again, just wanted to reiterate, you guys are more important than ever. But what do you think? What do you think about this changing media landscape, and where do you think this is going? Is this a sign of something good that's happening with Salon, or is this a sign of something negative? Really, really appreciate your guys' feedback. Other than that, Jason, I have nothing really else to say. And do you want to close it off here?
Guys, we're doing 4 videos a day across 2 platforms, News for a Change and We Are Change. Make sure you smash that thumbs up, you share this stuff on social media, but most importantly, guys, get out there and be the change you want to see in the world.